tapping in, man. Welcome back to another vid. Every NBA story too dark for ESPN. Let's hop straight into it, man. If you're new, subscribe to the channel, man. Let's hop into it.
Eddie Curry's family. Back in 2009, Nova Henry and her 10-month-old daughter Ava were murdered in their South Loop townhouse in Chicago. Nova's 3-year-old son Noah was there too, but somehow wasn't harmed. The man behind it, Frederick Goings, a 36-year-old attorney who used to represent Nova during a paternity case against Eddie Curry. They got romantically involved, and let's just say it was anything but healthy. The relationship was a mess. Nova had tried to get away from him more than once. She even got an order of protection in 2007, but canceled it less than 2 weeks later. By January 24th, Frederick had already crossed way too many lines. Evidence showed Nova was holding Ava when she was shot. Noah was left alone with their bodies for hours and told police Frederick did it. He even gestured to keep quiet, which is absolutely chilling. Surveillance caught Goings' vehicles around the townhouse multiple times leading up to the murders. Then he ran off to Michigan City, Indiana, where he was found using a hotel pool and laundry room. Real smooth. Gunshot residue was found in his car. During the trial in 2013, he denied everything. No surprise. But the jury needed only 4 hours to hand him a guilty verdict. He got life in prison, no parole. The judge didn't hold back either, calling him a predator. Eddie Curry ended up with custody of Noah. Nova's family found a way to forgive, somehow. Her mother became a voice against domestic violence, hoping to stop others from falling into the same nightmare Nova couldn't escape. Robert Swift's downfall. Robert Swift went straight from high school to the NBA when Seattle picked him 12th overall in 2004. He was over 7 feet tall and had real potential, but everything unraveled fast. By the time he was 21, he'd already torn his ACL and missed an entire season. The next year, he tore his lateral meniscus. His body just couldn't hold up. Seattle passed on, re-signing him in 2009. And he faded from the league with barely a whisper. Despite earning around $11 million, Swift's money problems got loud quick. He bought a mansion in Sammamish, Washington in 2006. But
What? Why you buying a mansion? What? All you got is 11 M's put up? Why the hell is you buying a mansion? Where is his financial advisor? Why the hell is you buying a mansion, dog?
By 2011, he stopped paying for it. The house went into foreclosure. He still wouldn't leave. When photos surfaced in 2013, the place was trashed. There was broken glass everywhere, spoiled food, holes in the walls, and heroin needles on the floor. Guns and ammo, too.
Bro turned into a hobo? No.
It wasn't a house anymore. It was a hazard. Things got darker in 2014. Police raided a home in Eastside Seattle and found Swift there. He was surrounded by heroin, meth, stolen goods, and enough weapons to arm a small militia. There were sawed-off shotguns, AR-15s, handguns, and thousands of rounds of ammo. He admitted he was using heroin and living at the house. By April the next year, he pleaded guilty to having an illegal short-barreled shotgun. He got a 1-year prison sentence and 3 years of supervised release. After getting out in 2016, he tried to stay clean and got back into basketball, just not at the professional level. He's coached kids, played locally, but never made it back to the big stage. Keon.
Way to turn your life around, bro. Salute. Salute, bro. Because it was looking ugly, bro. Thank God, bro. For real, dog. Shout out to bro.
Keon Clark's spiral. Keon Clark's time in the NBA looked solid on paper. He averaged over 8 points, almost 6 rebounds, and blocked shots like he meant it. Drafted 13th overall in 1998, he bounced between Denver, Toronto, Sacramento, and Utah. But what no one saw during the games was the bottle. Clark later admitted he never played sober. Not once. He drank half to a full pint of gin every day and even snuck drinks at halftime.
Ain't no way in hell this nigga out there on the court getting buckets, drunk as hell. Vision blurry. This man is out there drunk in an NBA game. What the hell? At halftime, this nigga supposed to be drinking Gatorade, but this nigga taking a shot of Fireball. Bro, what's up with bro?
Started way back in high school and spiraled into full-on daily blackouts after his career ended. Instead of helping, the money and fame made things worse. By 2006, he was facing drug and gun charges and just didn't show up to court. He got slapped with a 30-month sentence, which got overturned because he didn't have proper legal help. But the problems didn't stop there. In 2013, he pleaded guilty to weapons and DUI charges from incidents the year before. One time, a loaded gun was found in his home while he was on parole. Another time, he crashed his car into a telephone pole while drunk. That sealed it. He got 8 years in an Illinois prison. He ended up serving 4 and got out in July 2017. Since then, he's been back in his hometown of Danville, trying to piece his life together. He's owned up to how bad things got and wants to turn things around. Clark's story isn't just a fall from the NBA. It's what happens when addiction takes over and there's no real help around. The talent was there, but the pain ran deeper. Rodney Rogers accident. Rodney Rogers had a solid NBA career, even snagged 6th Man of the Year in 2000. He made around $27 million across stints with Denver, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Boston, New Jersey, New Orleans, and Philadelphia. Then came 2008, and everything changed. While riding an ATI in rural North Carolina, he hit a ditch, flipped over the handlebars, and landed on his head. He shattered his 3rd cervical vertebra and bruised the 4th. The result? Full paralysis from the shoulders down. Doctors gave him a 5% chance of regaining mobility. He needed a ventilator and was transferred to a spinal rehab center in Atlanta. His life instantly became a cycle of care and therapy, with medical costs pushing $400,000 a year. Rogers uses a motorized wheelchair controlled by head movements and requires daily help just to get through basic routines. Emotionally, it hit hard. Depression and suicidal thoughts followed, but his fiancée, Faye Suggs, stayed by him. That support kept him grounded.
Shout outs to her. She a real one, dog. Stuck by bro's side and made sure he's straight, bro. That's a real one right there, bro. Most women would have switched up and left, bro. Shout out to her.
When everything else felt lost. Despite everything, Rogers didn't disappear. He launched a foundation to support others with spinal injuries and began public speaking, pushing awareness and sharing his story. Then in 2024, he filed a lawsuit against Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. They denied in-home nursing care that had already been declared necessary, which made his condition even harder to manage. Rogers lives with intense challenges every day, but he's turned pain into purpose. His life now centers on advocacy, hope, and resilience. Even when the spotlight's gone, his fight keeps going. And honestly, that says more than any stat line ever could. Nicky Van Exel's conviction. In 2010, the son of Nick Van Exel, Nicky Maxwell Van Exel, shot and killed his best friend, Bradley Bassie Io, inside his home in Garland, Texas. Prosecutors said the motive was brutal and calculated. Io was set to testify about a series of armed robberies they pulled off earlier that year in Houston. 10 days before Io was scheduled to testify, Van Exel ended it all with a 12-gauge shotgun. After the shooting, he didn't panic. He went into cleanup mode. He wrapped Ayo's body in plastic, tossed it into his SUV, and dumped it by Lake Ray Hubbard. Then he went back home, cleaned up the blood, and got rid of the weapon in a North Dallas creek.
Why though? Your dad's an NBA player. Oh, that's crazy, dog. I'm talking about it be the ones that be having the best life, who grew up in the best circumstances, bro, that just end up going down the wrong path, bro. That's crazy.
Court records show it wasn't just reckless, it was planned. Originally, he was hit with a capital murder charge that was later dropped down to just murder. His defense team claimed it was all a tragic accident during horseplay with the gun. The jury didn't buy that. It only took them about 2.5 hours to convict him. On February 1st, 2013, Van Exel was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Under Texas law, he'll be eligible for parole after 30. His father, former NBA guard Nick Van Exel, testified during sentencing. He told Io's family how sorry he was and how nobody should ever have to go through something like that. Io's mother, Eunice Akwe Ayo, stood in court and called out the betrayal. She had treated Nicky like her own son. Now all she had left was grief and the courtroom silence that followed. Greg Oden's arrest. On August 7th, 2014, police showed up to a house in Lawrence, Indiana, after a domestic violence call around 3:30 in the morning. Inside, they found Greg Oden's ex-girlfriend with visible facial injuries, swelling, cuts, and blood on the furniture. The place was a mess. A flower pot had been knocked over, and a witness, the victim's best friend, told police that Oden had punched her in the face. Oden didn't try to dodge it. He admitted to the altercation and said he regretted what happened. At first, he was hit with 2 misdemeanor battery charges, but a few days later, on August 11th, things got more serious.
Fellas,
He was
gotta
formally
control your
charged with
anger,
felony
bro.
battery, causing serious bodily injury,
Hell
along
nah.
with 2 misdemeanors
That's
for
crazy.
domestic battery and battery causing injury. By December, he struck a plea deal. Oden pleaded guilty to the felony charge, and in exchange, the 3 other charges were dropped. In February 2015, the court sentenced him to 909 days of probation, a $200 fine, and mandatory domestic violence and alcohol counseling, 26 weeks of each. He was also slapped with a no-contact order, meaning he couldn't reach out to the victim. At the time, Oden was a free agent, having played for Miami the season before. His career had already been gutted by knee injuries, which had him in and out of lineups from the start.
My
The
boy
arrest
was not
only
locked
deepened the
in,
decline of what was once supposed to be a dominant NBA future. Derrick Rose's PED controversy. Back in 2011, Derrick Rose was at the top of the NBA, an MVP and face of the Chicago Bulls. Then an interview in ESPN, the magazine, dropped, and things got weird fast.
What happened?
In it, Rose was asked to rate how bad performance-enhancing drug use was in the league. The scale ran from 1 to 10, and he supposedly said 7. His exact words, "It's huge, and I think we need a level playing field where nobody has that advantage over the next person." Naturally, that stirred the pot. The media ran with it, fans debated it, and the league's image took a hit. But then Rose, through the Bulls, backtracked. He said he didn't even remember being asked that question, and if he did answer like that, he must have misunderstood what was being asked. He denied believing there was a PED problem in the NBA at all. Meanwhile, ESPN didn't blink. They stood by their reporting, said the interview happened in November 2010, and that the quote was accurate. According to them, the reporter got it right, and the quote wasn't taken out of context. So now it was a classic case of player versus publication. No follow-up clarification came from Rose. No correction came from ESPN. The quote stayed in the public record, and so did the denial. It left fans stuck in the middle, unsure whether to take the league's clean image at face value or start wondering what really happens behind the scenes when the cameras are off. Shawn Kemp's legal trouble. Shawn Kemp's post-NBA years haven't exactly been smooth sailing. Back in 2005, he was sitting in a parked car in Shoreline, Washington, when police rolled up because of the strong smell of marijuana. They searched the car and found about 60 grams of marijuana, some cocaine, and a semi-automatic pistol. He got arrested and later pleaded guilty to trying to possess more than 40 grams of marijuana. Fast forward to 2006 in Houston, Texas. Different city, same issue. Kemp was pulled over because his car had no license plate. The officer smelled burning marijuana, and the search turned up less than 2 ounces. He was charged with misdemeanor possession and released on a $500 bond. Then came 2023. Kemp tracked his stolen cell phone to the Tacoma Mall parking lot. What followed was not your typical lost phone situation. According to reports, a confrontation took place and shots were fired. Kemp claimed he was fired at first and only shot back in self-defense. Initially, no charges were filed, but on April 14th, he was formally charged with first-degree assault. In May, he pleaded not guilty. His legal team says the people involved had criminal histories, and Kemp was just protecting himself. His trial is set for May 27th, 2025.
That was close, my boy.
Multiple arrests and now faces a serious charge. From all-star status to courtrooms and controversy, his life off the court has taken a sharp turn. The next chapter depends on how that trial plays out. Anthony Grundy's tragedy. Anthony Grundy had a solid basketball career, but what followed was a downward spiral. In 2011, he got busted in Wake County, North Carolina for habitual impaired driving, his 4th DWI. But instead of facing the charges, he left the country and headed to Ghana. For years, he avoided the U.S. legal system until 2017, when he tried to re-enter through Queens, New York. That did not go well. He was arrested and later sentenced to 2 years in prison. The charges stacked up: felony DWI, 5 counts of skipping court, and 2 probation violations. Then things got worse. In June 2019, Grundy hit a 59-year-old woman with his car on Dixie Highway in Louisville, Kentucky. He left the scene. The woman didn't survive. Grundy turned himself in 8 days later and admitted he didn't have a license. His car wasn't insured and the plates were expired. Just a cascade of bad decisions that ended with someone losing their life. 5 months after that incident, on November 14th, he was stabbed during a domestic dispute in Louisville. Police found him on Muhammad Ali Boulevard with multiple stab wounds. He died at the hospital at just 40 years old. Grundy's post-basketball life was full of legal trouble, poor choices, and eventually a violent end. He played all over the world and even made it to the NBA. But once the game stopped, everything unraveled. It's a rough reminder that the challenges athletes face after retirement don't always play out in public until it's already too late. Michael Ray Richardson's band. Michael Ray Richardson went 4th overall in the 1978 draft and exploded onto the scene. He led the league in assists in 1980, topped the steals leaderboard 3 times, and made 4 All-Star games.
Okay,
He even snagged the Comeback Player of the Year in 1985 after entering treatment for substance abuse. But the comeback didn't last. Between 1983 and 1986, Richardson tested positive for cocaine 3 times. On February 25th, 1986, NBA Commissioner David Stern hit him with a lifetime ban. It was the league's harshest move under the anti-drug policy and made Richardson the first active player to be banned for life. At the time, the NBA was cracking down on drug use, and Richardson's case was used as an example of how serious they were. Even after getting banned, he didn't give up basketball. He took his game overseas and played in Italy, Croatia, and France all the way through 2002. After that, he moved into coaching in smaller leagues like the CBA and the NBL Canada, where he actually won championships. In 2023, Richardson released a memoir called Banned. It digs into everything, his rise, the addiction, and what came after. These days, he's not just talking about the past, he's running youth basketball clinics, working as a kindergarten teacher, and co-owning a beauty salon with his wife. His story runs the full range: stardom, collapse, survival, and reinvention. The league might have closed its doors on him, but Richardson found his way back into something that mattered, even if it wasn't in front of packed arenas anymore. Stephen Jackson
All-Star.
and Steve Francis's nightclub fight. In September 2013, a Houston nightclub turned into a low-light reel when Stephen Jackson and Steve Francis got into it during a live performance. Jackson, who was going by his rap name, Stack 5, was on stage when Francis came up behind him. Whatever was supposed to happen clearly didn't, because Jackson ended up with his hand on Francis's throat. The whole thing was caught on video and made the rounds online. Social media got loud fast, but legally, nothing happened. No charges, no arrests, just grainy footage of 2 former NBA players throwing away cool points in a crowded club. Later on, Jackson went on ESPN's Highly Questionable and explained the beef, or lack of one. He said they were never friends, never hung out, never even ran in the same circles. According to him, Francis showing up behind him like that was unexpected, especially in a packed space where tension was already high. Francis never publicly responded, and both of them moved on. But the moment stuck. It became another entry in the growing list of post-retirement missteps. Athletes navigating a spotlight that doesn't quite fade, just shifts to a different kind of stage. It didn't end careers, didn't land anyone in court, but it definitely threw more attention on how quickly things can go sideways when pride and past reputations clash in a public space. William Bedford's fall. William Bedford came into the league with size and potential. 7 feet tall, 6th overall pick in 1986, and early stints with the Suns and Pistons. He even landed on Detroit's championship roster in 1990. But off the court, things were unraveling. Drugs pulled him away from the game and eventually ended his NBA career. After basketball, his addiction didn't fade. It grew. In 2001, police in Michigan caught him transporting 25 pounds of marijuana. That should have been a wake-up call, but things got worse. By 2003, Bedford was convicted of possessing cocaine with intent to distribute. That landed him a 10-year prison sentence. Prison wasn't just time served, it was survival. Bedford talked about near violence, threats, and navigating constant danger. For a guy who once stood under NBA lights, that fall was steep. Watching his former team win the title while he sat in rehab only made it more painful. After getting out in 2011, Bedford tried to turn the page. He started mentoring and coaching, using his experience to warn others about what happens when choices spiral. He shared his story with young athletes, showing them how fast things can slip and how hard it is to climb back. From NBA champion to a decade behind bars, Bedford's journey doesn't wrap up cleanly, but he's out there trying to make a difference now. Lessons learned the hard way, passed down to keep someone else from going the same route. Leon Smith's breakdown. Leon Smith's path to the NBA was built on raw talent and tough circumstances. Raised in foster care after being removed from his home at 5, he became a high school standout in Chicago, averaging over 25 points and 14 rebounds a game. The San Antonio Spurs took him 29th overall in the 1999 draft, then traded him to Dallas. Once with the Mavericks, things unraveled. Smith refused to play in the minors or overseas, demanding an NBA roster spot. That friction with the team limited his chances. Then, in November of that same year, things got tragic. Smith had a full mental health crisis. He smashed a car window with a rock and tried to take his own life by swallowing around 250 aspirin. He was hospitalized in a psychiatric facility immediately after. Not long after his release, Smith got arrested twice within 24 hours for threatening his ex-girlfriend and damaging property. The Mavericks suspended him and bought out his contract for $1.2 million, spread out over 10 years. By February 2000, he was released. Smith kept trying to bounce back. He played in minor leagues, had short stints with Atlanta and Seattle, but never locked in a permanent role. His journey showed how the NBA spotlight can blindside players who aren't prepared mentally or emotionally, and how fast promise can fade without support. The league often talks about development, but for Smith, the lack of structure off the court proved more damaging than anything on it. Talent got him there. The absence of care kept him from staying. Darius Miles collapsed. Darius Miles came into the NBA as a teenage phenom and walked away with $62 million in career earnings. But by 2016, he was filing for bankruptcy. His reported assets sat around $460,000, while his debts ballooned past $1.5 million. Nearly $300,000 of that was owed to the IRS. Bad investments and legal problems drained him. One of those legal issues came in 2011. Miles was arrested at Lambert, St. Louis, Lewis International Airport after security found a loaded gun in his carry-on. He was booked for unlawful use of a weapon and later released. It added one more hit to a reputation already bruised by injuries in a career that fizzled out too soon. But the biggest blow came off the court. In 2018, Miles published a brutally honest piece in the Players Tribune. He wrote about battling depression and the overwhelming grief that followed his mother's death. For the first time, he publicly laid out how lost he'd felt without basketball and without any kind of emotional anchor. Since then, he's found a new lane. Starting in 2019, he's co-hosted the Knuckleheads podcast with Quentin Richardson. The show brings in NBA guests and covers everything from rookie years to real-life struggles.
I know I've seen him before.
It's given him a new voice and a second chance to be heard for more
Shout
than
out
what he
OG for
lost.
turning his
Darius
life
Miles'
around,
story
man.
cuts deep. It's a reminder that money and talent don't shield you from pain, and that what happens after the final buzzer can be just as hard to navigate as anything on the court. Luther Wright's breakdown. Luther Wright stood 7'2" and was drafted 18th overall by the Utah Jazz in 1993. He had size, athleticism, and every reason to thrive. But his NBA career ended almost as fast as it started. During his rookie season, things went sideways. In January 1994, he was found at a rest stop near Salt Lake City, smashing garbage cans and breaking car windows. That meltdown landed him in a psychiatric facility. Doctors diagnosed him with bipolar disorder, and not long after, the Jazz let him go. After that, Wright's life spun out. Substance abuse took over. He ended up homeless, wandering streets with no plan, no resources, and no real help. At one point, he lost 2 toes to frostbite while living outside. He went from NBA courts to sleeping rough, just trying to survive each day. Eventually, Wright found something to hold on to. He connected with Morning Star Community Christian Center in Linden, New Jersey. Through the church, he got a support system and a reason to keep going. He also wrote a book, A Perfect Fit, where he opened up about the struggle, the collapse, and the attempt to find peace. His story isn't about a comeback to basketball. It's about clawing back from nothing, from mental illness and addiction, and learning to keep living anyway. Wright's fall was steep, but his survival is something most people never see. He didn't make it as an NBA star, but he's still standing, still speaking, and still fighting to stay steady in a life that started with nothing and spun out of control fast.
Bro.
Melvin Turpin's suicide.
Crazy.
Melvin Turpin made his name at the University of Kentucky, where he earned All-American honors and helped take the Wildcats to the Final Four in 1984. That same year, he was drafted 6th overall by the Washington Bullets and then traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But his pro career never lived up to the college hype. Turpin played 5 seasons in the NBA with Cleveland, Utah, and Washington. He averaged 8.5 points and just under 5 rebounds per game, but constant struggles with weight slowed him down. What should have been a dominant career as a 7-footer faded into the background fast. After the league, Turpin lived quietly. He took a job as a security guard, including a post at the University of Kentucky Hospital. People described him as kind and approachable, someone who didn't talk much about basketball, but didn't push people away either. On July 8, 2010, Turpin was found dead in his Lexington, Kentucky home from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was 49. The coroner confirmed it as suicide, but no note was publicly reported. His death shocked the Kentucky basketball community. Former teammates and coaches remembered him as gentle, talented, and deeply private. Turpin's story points to a bigger issue: the quiet battles many former athletes face after the game ends. Fame disappears. The routines vanish. The spotlight moves on. For Turpin, the silence became too much. His death left questions unanswered, and another reminder that success on the court doesn't always mean peace off of it. Walter Davis's
mental
addiction.
health, bro.
Walter Davis
Make
was
sure
one
you
of
have
the
mental health
smoothest scorers the
straight, bro.
NBA had in the late 70s and 80s. 6-time All-Star, face of the Suns, and a master of the mid-range game. But behind the stats was a battle he eventually couldn't hide. In December 1985, after torching Golden State for 43 points, Davis checked himself into rehab in Pasadena. He admitted he was struggling with cocaine and alcohol, owned it publicly, and said he wanted to get clean. After a 29-day stay, Davis came back in January 1986 and kept playing well, but it didn't last. By April 1987, he relapsed and ended up back in treatment. During that period, the league was already under pressure from a growing drug scandal, and Davis's name got pulled in. He wasn't charged, but his testimony led to the indictment of several Suns players. As a result, Davis was suspended without pay for the final game of that season. The league's drug policy at the time made things simple. A third violation could mean a lifetime ban. The Suns still brought him back the next year, but between back problems and the weight of the scandal, his performance slipped. After the 1987-88 season, they let him walk. He finished his playing days with Denver and Portland before retiring in 1992. Afterward, Davis patched things up with Phoenix, joined their broadcast team, and scouted talent.
Okay.
The Suns retired his number 6 in 1994.
Wow.
In 2024, he was posthumously inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Damn.
Walter Davis showed what grace
Okay.
looks like on the court and how hard
Shout
it
out
is to
Walter
carry
Davis.
that same grace off of it. Chris Gatling's scam. Chris Gatling,
His
once an
story wasn't that
NBA
bad,
All-Star,
but
known
damn,
for his hustle
good job.
and mid-range touch, ended up with more headlines off the court than he ever did on it after retirement. In December 2017, he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for running a telemarketing scam that specifically targeted elderly victims in Arizona.
Why? Why would you do that? You're in the league. What the hell? Bad decisions, bro.
A telemarketing scam that specifically targeted elderly victims in
Elderly
Arizona.
victims?
From October
his karma was gonna
2014
come
through February
eventually.
2015, Gatling promised fake website packages to seniors, telling them they'd earn passive income each month. It was all lies.
my
He collected
God.
over $155,000 from 12 victims. Some gave up their life savings. Instead of delivering anything, he used the money on himself. Clothes, restaurants, entertainment, everything but what was promised. The court hit him with more than prison time. He was also ordered to pay back $167,000 and will be on probation for 3 years once released. And this wasn't even his first post-NBA legal mess. In 2013,
hell.
he got caught illegally living in a Paradise Valley home he didn't own, then trying to rent it out like he did. He pleaded guilty to theft and forgery and got 4 years probation.
up with
Gatling's
bro?
fall is another reminder of how badly things can go when the structure of pro sports disappears. From All-Star Weekend to courtrooms and
My boy was
cons,
a
his path shows
legit
how the
scammer
spotlight
since he
can
came
fade into
into the
shadows
league. His whole
real
life is a
fast when
scam.
decisions start spiraling. Terry Furlows crashed. Terry Furlow was 25 years old and coming off the best season of his NBA career when it all ended. On May 23rd, 1980, he was driving his 1979 Mercedes-Benz at around 120 miles per hour on Interstate 71 near Lindale, Ohio. He lost control and crashed into a utility pole. The collision killed him instantly. The autopsy told a brutal story. Cocaine and Valium were in his system. Open beer cans and marijuana were found in the car. The combination painted a clear picture of a young athlete battling more than defenders. Furlow had just averaged 16 points and 4 assists in 55 games for the Utah Jazz during the 79-80 season. It was his 4th year in the league after playing for Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Atlanta. He had been a star at Michigan State, leading the Big Ten in scoring during his senior year. But substance use was already a growing problem in the league, and Furlow became one of the earliest high-profile examples of how deep it ran. His death sent shockwaves through the basketball world. Magic Johnson, one of his closest friends, was a pallbearer at his funeral. Furlow's story didn't get the spotlight it deserved at the time, but for those who knew him or watched him play, the talent was real. So was the struggle. He wasn't just another cautionary tale. He was a rising star who never got the chance to find out how high he could go. James and Curry's 13 arrests.
Damn,
James and Curry's basketball
13
story
arrests?
started like a fairy tale. Record-breaking scorer in North Carolina. More points than Michael Jordan. Top recruit in the country. But it didn't take long for things to get off the rails. In 2004, he was arrested in a drug sting and charged with multiple felonies tied to marijuana distribution. That cost him his scholarship to the University of North Carolina. He pivoted to Oklahoma State, played well, and got drafted 51st overall by the Bulls in 2007, but he never played for them. Instead, Curry's name became more known in police reports than box score. Over the years, he racked up 13 arrests. There was the 2008 arrest in Boise for urinating in public and resisting arrest. In 2014, he was busted again in Oklahoma for weed and giving fake info to an officer. Those are just two from the list, but the pattern was consistent. Run-ins with the law, mostly drug and conduct related, over and over. His actual NBA debut came in 2010 with the Clippers. It lasted exactly 3.9 seconds. That's the shortest career in league history. After that, Curry played overseas, bounced through minor leagues, and never stuck. In 2017, he crashed his car while reaching for a dropped phone. The wreck left him with broken ribs and a fractured back. It ended any thought of another comeback. He's since worked as a truck driver and youth coach, trying to give back and rebuild. But those 13 arrests, they follow his name around louder than that record-breaking high school stat ever did. A career that should have been about points turned into one about missed chances. Len Elmores' warning. During his time in the NBA in the 1970s, Len Elmore wasn't just another big man in the paint. He was also one of the few voices willing to talk about what was really going on behind the scenes. And what he saw was clear. Drug use was everywhere. Elmore has openly described how substance abuse, especially cocaine, ran through locker rooms during that decade. It wasn't just a few isolated cases, it was cultural. Players used it casually, even openly, and the league had no serious enforcement or structure to deal with it. That era of the NBA was flashy on the surface, but underneath, addiction and recklessness were taking root. This wasn't a basketball problem alone. It mirrored what was happening in the country at the time. But in the NBA, where fame, stress, and money collided, the effects hit hard. Elmore's accounts matched what journalists and insiders later confirmed. Players were spiraling, and the league had no plan. It wasn't until the 1980s that the NBA started putting real drug policies in place. By then, several careers had already burned out. Elmore's perspective helps connect those dots. How the league's golden age was also a warning sign, and how ignoring the off-court realities came at a heavy price for a generation of talent. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Them, bro. Thanks for watching.
Dog, this video right here was an informative video. I didn't even know most of these stories even existed. That's crazy, man. All I see in this video is a lot of bad choices, drug use, depression, mental health issues, a lot of sad situations going on in this video, bruh. I did not know NBA players dealt with things like this, bro. Some people had bad financial decisions. Some players had a hard head, didn't know how to listen, etc., bro. The league came a long way, bro, for real, man. And you have to be locked in to stay in this league for a long time. It's a lot of players that come and go into the NBA. And this video right here explains it a lot, bro. You know what I'm saying, man? This is a great video right here, man. If you like the reaction, man, hit the like button. Comment down below, man, any videos y'all want me to react to next. And last but not least, subscribe to the channel if you new. If you not subscribed to the channel, man, what the hell is you doing? Sub up. Young Groovy signing out. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one.